Some good may actually come out of Emelia Perez, but it's not for any of the points that I've seen people talking about. So, if you don't know, Emelia Perez has just become this really controversial movie where everyone who is essentially from Mexico or trans says it's highly offensive, and everyone who had to listen to the music also says it's highly offensive. Now, it seems like there really shouldn't be anything good to come from this movie, but there may be. Now, a lot of people that I have watched their videos and stuff have said that they think that what will happen is that it will win some more awards and Oscars and stuff, and then it will end up, proving that those awards are meaningless, more so than they already are. And I'm just thinking, okay, if they're already meaningless and you don't think anything of them, one movie winning award or two or three or whatever, it's not going to make them mean less to you if you already think they mean nothing. So what is actually happening with this film? So the whole video that I had made before, I recorded a nice video going over, the controversies around the movie, what could have been done better. If you hear little jingle noises or whatever in the background, that would be my cat and dogs. And I just really ended up realizing that the majority of the video, like the first 2/3, was essentially just me saying what's already been said by so many other people, and I only really ended up with some interesting points towards the end, so I'm re-recording this all to just be about those points, basically. So I was introduced to this movie and the whole controversies and everything by the Penguin Z0 video about it, and yeah, that was interesting, especially for the music, because he sang a little part of that now infamous song, and my goodness, I thought that he was exaggerating and making goofy lyrics to try and make it sound worse than it was, and then he played the clip, and my goodness, yeah, no, he sang it word for word, and I think he honestly felt the urge to sing, and that made it more musical than it was in the movie, because I honestly prefer his version significantly more, because the music from the movie just seems more like awkward spoken word poetry, if that makes sense. Like, they were expecting people not to clap for the music, but to snap, and yeah, I don't know what was going on with that, and I don't know beyond just it. I don't know, and that's all I can say about the music aspect of this thing. But anyways, the other things that were really important I wanted to talk about was what Emelia Perez could actually mean for people in the industry going forward. And again, a lot of people that I was seeing mention this were only saying that it means that it will prove that the performative kindness of Hollywood and the awards all mean nothing. And it's like, okay, well, that's not new. So what would be new about this? And I thought it was very interesting that in one of the videos I watched, someone brought up that James Cameron, I believe it was, said that he actually really enjoyed the movie and he thought the style was very unique. Or I believe it was James Cameron who said the style was unique, at least. And so that got me thinking here. So if we say that the performative kindness, at the end of the day, it has ended up making this movie the exact opposite of what it meant to be. It was supposed to be very supportive of, being trans and stuff, and it ended up just kind of really having the opposite effect. What exactly will this movie do for that going forward? Like, what can artists learn from that? And then also, what does it mean that there are people in Hollywood, big timers in Hollywood, that were actually inspired by the fact that there was something different stylistically about this movie? And don't get me wrong, I don't really agree with all the stylistic choices, but there was a style that they were going for that was very different, and, except for with the music, that was maybe not really music, I would say that the style could actually prove beneficial going forward. So let me explain. Hollywood has my cat's just knocking stuff over. Hollywood has a tendency to go in circles. History repeats itself. And one of the things that's very common when you look at film history is that things get stale. And when things get stale, it takes a while before eventually someone comes in and rocks the boat and changes things. So you had, back when movies were in black and white, you had the French New Wave, a bunch of French critics who were like, my goodness, these movies are so boring. Let's just spice it up a bit. Give me a camera. I will just do something different. And they did. And that really did end up shaking up the film world. And then, things got stale again, and then we ended up with the Hollywood rebels, like Spielberg, Lucas, Coppola, and all of them. So we have this pattern of things get stale, and then they get interesting, and then they get stale, and then they get interesting, and things have gone stale again. So we're due for them to become interesting. So I've been calling this out since, honestly, a little bit before I started film school even, so back when I was in high school. And I was like, you know what, it's getting very, very, very stale. I actually started to predict that the MCU was going to get stale, which maybe not necessarily all that crazy to think about, but like that was like way before Endgame or Infinity War that I predicted it. So, you know, I'm gonna say maybe that was worthwhile. And so, you know, I was just like, okay, yeah, the industry is stale. Things are starting to feel like they're the same, and I'm seeing patterns here going on that then were just reinforced by the patterns seen in the past, where it's like, okay, yeah, it's just going downhill. Things are getting very stale. And so I was like, okay, now we need people who will come in and shake the boat. And usually what happens is the people who grew up with that being stale entertainment, who want to tell stories, are going to be the ones to come up and say, hey, let me try something new. So I was like, okay, you know what? It's gonna have to be the people who are, you know, seeing these movies as, you know, teenagers and stuff, growing up with them, going, wow, this is, you know, not fun. And then who want to get into the industry, who are going to shake the boat. So I was like, you know, that might be like my group doing that here. And so, yeah, not to say that a lot of people my age have gotten into the industry necessarily. Not that I'm particularly young, but I'm not the average age for people when they are in the industry or anything like that. Plus, it's a hard industry to get into. But anyways, the important thing here is that it's probably going to inspire artists to rise up and create a change. And if that ends up coming from people who are already in Hollywood, that's actually pretty big. If you get someone who is like a major, big-time director who is wanting to encourage stories that have style, that have a little flair, that are trying something different, we may actually get to see those artists who want to see something different emerge in the industry. You know, James Cameron, he's like, you know, super obsessed with making the Avatar stuff, and that's all fine and good. He can do that, but if he can use some of his, you know, influence and stuff to help artists who want to try something new get into the industry and do something new, well, that's great. That can actually help pull Hollywood out of this super stale, just rut that it's been in. And so I'm kind of hopeful with that maybe for the people who saw this and were like, hey, there's some art here, even if this wasn't the best execution of it, that might encourage people to start thinking outside the box. Maybe they will start to go away from this overly formulaic stuff that we've been seeing. Because I don't know about you, but for me, anytime I see a trailer, like maybe once or twice throughout the past couple of years, I've seen one that seems like it stands out and it's different, but otherwise, they all just feel so the same. Like, there just feels like there's nothing interesting or new or fresh about them. And if I see one, I've seen them all. Like, you see the, you know, the assassins getting back to work or stuff, you know, and you see the, you know, sassy woman, you know, in a love triangle, and you see the superheroes who are just all doing the same things now, and just the comedies that are all, you know, young adult raunchy stuff or whatever, and just like, that's just it. It's just, there's just really not much out there that's fun and unique and new. Not to say that there hasn't been anything, but a lot of it just feels like if I see one thing, I'm going to have seen them all, and I'm not even interested in seeing one of them, so why would I watch any of them, you know? And so I'm very, very, very hopeful, maybe a little too hopeful, but I'm hopeful at least that maybe the stylistic change in Emelia Perez and the fact that, yeah, it has gotten some attention because of the performative kindness, maybe that will actually do some good in that we will get people thinking about different types of art and the way that you can use film as a medium, and it doesn't always have to be exactly the same. Like, when I was doing my first recording, I was very, very, very pleased with myself because I actually remembered the words for this, which is a big deal to me because this was what I learned in some of my like earliest film classes, so I'm very excited I remembered. But there's a thing called continuity editing, as well as discontinuity editing. And so the continuity editing is where you are trying to make the edits very seamless and flow, so that way it feels more like you're just naturally watching something. You're not supposed to notice or think about the edits when it's continuity editing, but when it's discontinuity editing, you're supposed to notice. It's more artistic, it's more stylistic. You might have the panels show up. You might have, you know, very dramatic comedic cuts and whatnot that the edits essentially are really key in telling the story and creating some of the story. And I love using that. It's not going to work for every single story, don't get me wrong, but it can work, and it's very fun when it is done well. So I would really like to encourage more people to try and use discontinuity editing. Like, if your story could use it, if it could be enhanced by it, try it. Don't just go with the safe continuity editing. Try something a little new. I also really like using dramatic color and lighting color and stuff. So the fact that it did use some of that, I kind of like. I don't know that I necessarily like the way it's used in Emilia Perez every single time, but I generally like the idea of using a strong color palette. Like, if I can think of a movie or a show or whatever, and I can like think of colors to represent it, like if you were to do like a what's the color palette of this and stuff, like if you've ever seen those videos where people are like, oh, let's take the colors of a logo and mix them all together to see what they make when they mix all these different paints, and it's like, okay, now you have like the color blocks of something and it's recognizable. Then it's easier for us to pinpoint and be like, oh yeah, this is that. You might be like, oh, the Spider-Man is the red, black, blue with a little bit of white and stuff, and Miles is the white, black, and red, and you have these different characters, the red and gold for Iron Man and whatnot. And I'm just looking around my room for inspiration, and I have a lot of Marvel stuff up, but it's just like, that's fun when we can think about like what is the like signature colors of a film, and it actually has some signature colors. Hocus Pocus, we have some the Halloween colors, we have black, but we also have some orange and purple and green, and colors play a part in it, and they're fun and they're exciting, and they give some life and vibrancy to it, and a little bit of a signature, a little bit of an identity. And I love when films can use that. And when they do use it, they usually end up, whether or not it's like really consciously or not, being known for that. They're easier for merchandising and stuff, sure, but also like you can just recognize like a poster quickly. So if we can have artists actually thinking now about doing something different, having art that is not just overly formulaic. It's not that the formula is always bad, it can be fine, but like story structure is a good formula. Making everything look and feel exactly the same is not a good formula. So if we can get past that and we can encourage more people to express their individuality in their art, and have their art have some sense of individuality and identity and stuff, that I think would overall be a very good thing. So yeah, maybe Emilia Perez didn't do it the best, but if it at least put the idea out there and some people are inspired by it, that could be fantastic for the industry and actually be a step in the right direction in getting away from this overly stale, boring, just rut that Hollywood has been in. So the other thing that I really was thinking about here is that if the awards seem like they don't mean anything anymore, that's probably also going to be a good thing. Again, I think at this point, if you like the awards, you like them just for the fun of them, and if you don't like the awards, you already don't like them, and no matter what, if this movie wins awards or not, I don't really imagine it's going to change people's minds. Like, I don't know what it's going to do. I don't think it's going to change. If you don't care for the awards and this movie doesn't win some Oscars or whatever, you're not going to care about them all of a sudden. The award show's still going to mean nothing. If it means a lot to you and this movie wins, they're probably still going to mean something to you. You may question why this one won anything, but, I don't know, that's history with the awards and stuff. Like, they don't always award to the films that should get the awards. Like, Jaws was famously snubbed, and some people came forward and were like, yeah, we were just kind of scared that if we gave the award to Jaws, that was going to be the standard we would all be held to, and Jaws was like the first blockbuster, so that was very different, that was very out there, and everyone was very scared to have to essentially shift gears for the entire industry and stuff, which granted, I don't think it should have shifted too much, which it has now, so I think we need to pull back from the blockbusters. Not everyone needs to be a blockbuster. Blockbuster went out of business for a reason, and I think it's a sign we need to, pull back, maybe have some of the smaller films, that way the big ones feel big and small ones feel like they have, deep personal meanings. It's a little more intimate, let every type of film have its place, and anyways, so at this point, it's like, if you're gonna care, you're gonna care. If you're not gonna care, you're not gonna care. Like, whatever. It's just, awards or not, doesn't matter. But if, for some people, it does make it seem like the awards don't matter as much, or if it makes people value the awards less, or if it simply makes the people who are not valuing these award shows value something else publicly. A little, like if they put more support into, you know, uplifting the movies that aren't just these award baits and stuff, and they're, you know, genuine pieces of art, then maybe we can actually support artists who want to make art for the sake of the art. You know, it would be great to have something that you've done win a nice big fancy award. Sure, it's nice to be appreciated, it's nice to be told, hey, you did a good job. That's all great and fine and stuff, but at the end of the day, like, for me, I went into studying this field and practicing, developing skills. Every single screenplay I write knowing that odds are it will never see the light of day, but knowing that if I had the chance to either have it win some big award or genuinely mean something to a group of people that just happen to watch it, I would rather choose the group of people that just, it happens to mean something. Because if the award means nothing, and then seeing it and genuinely connecting to it, but no award, it actually means this is, you know, meant something to someone, then that's when I know, like, hey, I've done my job. Like, that's what I want. I want to create, to share, to, you know, I love storytelling at its core, and so to connect with someone through a story and stuff, that's great. That's what I want. And so if we get more artists like that who are being encouraged to make their art, they're being outwardly supported, if there is a demand for this type of art where it is more so art for the sake of art rather than for the sake of awards, that again could be a huge net positive. We really do need more artists like that in the industry, and we need, more importantly, executives who can value that. And so if the people, you know, the people who are paying the money aren't supporting the awards and the movies just because they get the awards, then, well, they're eventually going to be forced to have to invest in the movies that aren't there for the awards. Because at the end of the day, like, they can all pat themselves on the back for these, you know, award-winning movies, but the money's gonna run out eventually if they're only just, you know, circulating between a small group of people. Like, yeah, sure, they're all very wealthy, but like, they can't all just keep making movies and just changing wealth between hands and literally just doing it in a little circle like that. Like, the industry needs the audience. So if the audience is outwardly supporting the movies that are there to create something meaningful and support the artists that are there to do that and not just want the awards, then yeah, that would be a positive. So we essentially have two opportunities here where Emelia Perez may have just, you know, expedited the process in getting away from this very, very boring, stale Hollywood. And yeah, sure, maybe it's a little hopeful of me to say that it could actually be contributing to that, but hey, maybe it will, even if it only, you know, encourages one person to be like, hey, I want to create art for the sake of art because this just did not do it right because it was so preoccupied with awards. Or someone is like, hey, I want to create something that's a little visually different because, you know, I've been inspired by something that was visually different and I don't want something that feels the same as everything else. If it's at least one thing that was good, then hey, that's one thing that's good. And, you know, whether or not that will ever outweigh the potential harm that Emelia Perez has done, I don't know. Yeah, because it definitely seems like fuel for anyone who dislikes people transitioning and stuff. This seems like it will give them fuel for that, but then I think by having pretty much everyone just disown this movie and go like, holy cow, this is just awful, I'm hopeful the damage will be minimal. That's, yeah, it's a lot of hope, I guess. But, you know, hey, I grew up with Star Wars, so that's what we do. So, you know, yeah, hopefully this will actually have some sort of good, and the bad it has done will be minimal. But you know what? If this ends up just simply being the breaking point, where it's like, okay, we gotta wake up and realize that this stuff just sucks, and we need to change things up. We need to get new blood in here, we need to get new ideas in here, we need to get new styles, we need to get new stories, we need to get new passion in here, and a new perspective, then that's great. So I'm hopeful that that's what this movie has done. I don't know for sure that it will be, but hey, maybe. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it. Feel free to like, subscribe, whatever, leave a comment with your thoughts. And also, you know, if you have any other topics you might be interested in hearing my thoughts on, I would love to hear it, because I really do love talking about movies. Even if, you know, maybe only one person sees this, it still means something to me. So yeah, please just let me know, and thank you for watching.